Was I a one-hit wonder? Like, was this just a one-time thing that, will not happen again? And I dropped out of law school to take a job at Google because I thought I'd climb that way. And then I quit Google to go to Silicon Valley to start the Equalution. And, it was all very just unconventional.
Was there a day along the Equalution journey that you realised that you fell out of love with it?
I'm 27. I've got everything I ever dreamed of. Why am I A, so lonely, and B, why is it so empty? I'd give it all up to find love. I would give up everything I've got just to find love.
What do you think would be your hardest day in business?
The day I decided to leave. It was literally like a breakup, and there's highs and lows throughout all that process, but coming out of a business for 8 years that I started when I was a kid, I started when I was 21 years old, I had to relearn essentially the workplace, and overall I was just not ready, but ready, you know what I mean? Hi, my name's Jade Spooner and this is Life, Money and Love.
We're back. Honestly, we have a banger today, a legend of a guest. We know everyone loves all the business podcasts, and this chick is an absolute legend. Jade Spooner. She's done incredible things already at such a young age. She's a Forbes 30 under 30 lister, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Co-founder of Equalution, a business her and a business partner grew to 8-figure valuation, and then recently exited that business, did a lot of consulting, and you started a new business, Big Uppetite, which is, I'll let you kind of explain what it does, but which is a really cool, exciting new venture. First of all, welcome to Life, Money and Love. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for that kind intro.
Do my best. Do my best.
That's a goodie.
So Jade, where I want to start
Yeah.
with you, obviously you've done so much. You've talked about Equalution a million times. I do want to get to that and that big journey because it's such a big part of who you are, what you've learned through business. But I want to kind of start with the end in mind and start by focusing on Big Uppetite because I'm really interested about what this new business is, what it was born from, and kind of like what you guys are doing. I can obviously see where I think it comes from, but I'd be really interested if you could let us know, first of all, what it is and what led you to creating this new business.
Well, I think Equalution really put me, I guess, on the map when it comes to business. But I personally feel like my biggest years have probably been in the last 1 to 2 that I have the last 12 months stepping away from Equalution and the exit and everything and then starting Big Uppetite because nothing can prepare you for a startup like a startup, you know? Like you just get thrown in the deep end. Like I was even on the way here, I was in the car and I was on the phone to my sister. I'm like, I'm just tired. I'm just tired, So a startup is just like a completely different world. But like all startups, most startups, it was an accident. Like it was birthed from just seeing a product market fit essentially. So I was in a bit of a transition period with the exit of Equalution. So I had resigned as an employee, but I was still a technical director. So my involvement with the company on a day-to-day basis was limited, if any. And then it was just like sort of high level decision overview. And then really just focusing on getting acquired essentially, getting the business acquired. So I was consulting on the side because I couldn't do nothing from both a practical sense and also just me as an individual. And so I was just consulting one-on-one. I knew full well it was not scalable. Like I knew it was fully reliant on me as an individual giving hour consults for a sum, and as much as you could make a living off it, like I loved it to a degree, but I want to do something that touches more.
Yeah,
people.
you need to see the longevity to keep you going, right? Like there needs to be something you can build on rather than just like you can up your prices, but what's that really going to achieve for you in the long term?
Nothing really. And you're one human and you kind of work out essentially your ceiling and your cap when it comes to, one-on-one business consulting. And I knew that all from the start, but in December, I met my now business partner, Jenna, at a party. And as you do, I was not keeping my eyes out for business propositions or anything like that, but we just sort of stumbled across each other. I'd followed her for quite a few years. And she had started this course called the Fitness Business Strategy. And essentially, I did find myself attracting a lot of online coaches and personal trainers. And I was pretty vocal about the fact that in the tech space, that's the path that I will go down next in creation of a product is tech for fitness professionals. And I knew that Jenna had done this fitness business strategy. She did exceptionally well. Like she was doing 6 figures a month from the get-go, like from the very, very start. And basically it was an automated course. And when we looked under the bonnet of that content, it was very much how I was teaching and how I structured my own consulting sort of thing. And we just sort of thought of the power of, 2 brains, 1 goal. is better than the individual on their own. And we formulated a program which was a combination of essentially what I'd been doing on a consulting front and her fitness business strategy, and we called it an accelerator program.
Yeah.
So from that, Big Uppetite was born with its very first service, and essentially it's a combination of marketing assistance and tech and development in one agency. So we essentially equip a founder with not only tools on like a practical sense in terms of your branding, your marketing material, templates, email marketing, all that kind of stuff, but we also coach them along the way, and we build all their back-end platforms as well, from website to client portals, and essentially streamline what a lot of PTs, online coaches, and most professionals in service-based businesses do very manually.
Yeah, so you're really combining both of your experiences
Everything.
pretty much perfectly. And
yep, smashed it all together.
The question I have is, how do you, like, is this like a few wines deep, you start chatting about the business already at the party, or you just got along and then it kind of bloomed afterwards?
To be totally honest with you, she was on my radar. Like, I knew exactly who she was. I knew exactly what she'd done. She knew who I was, and when you get two energies like that in a room, you don't just talk about, you just talk about business.
That's what you do.
You can't talk about anything else, So I think that's what happened. So we obviously were at a party, so we were drinking, and I was like, you do what I do, and I do what you do, and there was a bit of that. But it was pretty soon after that I was like, can you come over? I'd like to meet again and have a chat about something that I've got on my mind. And I said, let's partner. And I said, I don't have exactly a logical rollout for you of what the next 6, 12, 18 months is going to look like, but I know it's going to work. So just trust me.
Yeah, because I think it's so important what you've done, because I've thought about it a lot. I've done quite a bit of consulting with just like e-commerce businesses and stuff like that. And kind of the reason that I pulled away from in that form is because there wasn't like a set structure or program that you guys have obviously built out. What I found was, like, the first call was always really amazing. I could add so much value because they don't know about all these things I can teach them, and that's great. But then after that, it became about, can you solve all my biggest problems?
Yeah, it's so true, right?
It's like there needs to be something to take them through a process, and then I can add value. But unless they're kind of at a certain level, it's like, I'm sure you get this, talking about when you're vibing with someone on a similar level with like mindset or business, you can have a couple wines and love talking about business. But sometimes, like, if it's not as enjoyable having those conversations with people that maybe don't understand everything you're chatting about.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing. My question was, when you were consulting to like all these clients, what did you notice was some of the common questions they wanted help with or areas of concern, and then what was your advice to them for that?
I think building a community was a major sort of, how do I even get people to put their eyes on my brand? And I think we've been party to a really interesting culture in that, there's a lot of overnight successes that are read about these days, and you hear a lot of 6-figure months with e-com businesses and things like that, and a lot of founders that I don't think are naturally inherent founders wake up and think if they, chuck 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand into a business, that they can turn that into, something that is got recurring revenue and a community and a brand and, have content that just flows from them and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's really where passion needs to come into the equation as well. And it needs to not just be about making money, and it's important. Like, it's important to have that as a factor, because if what you're doing is not working, you won't make a dime, But overall, I think the problem is people don't know how to build an audience, and there's a disconnect from their why they started, who they're doing this for, and what they're actually doing. And then I also think as well, there's that just lack of attachment to the realistic nature of running a business, which is that, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah, it takes time and it takes a lot of effort, like you said, but it's also not for everybody. And that's the thing. It's a common misconception because of brands like myself. Like, we're one of the brands that, like, probably High Smile, like Elias, like some of these brands that had that ridiculous first year. And then it sets the expectation of, I can save up 20, 30 grand, come up with a product, and it's just naturally going to be an overnight success.
Yep.
But that's the thing. There's a lot of it that comes down to really good product, right timing, and good marketing. But like, to really continue to be successful 4 or 5 years down the track, there's so much hard work. And I've even realized something about myself, and you have to be really self-aware. I've realized that I would not want to be a CEO of a large company.
Oh, yeah.
With like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 500 staff. because it's just not me. I would much rather be a founder of a company, be super involved in the nitty gritty for the first few years, and then step back, hire someone that's way better than me to run the business.
Yeah.
And like you said, be involved in like some strategy and big decision-making levels, but it's not going to be for me. But I saw so many people that would come to me and their self-worth kind of gets down because they're not achieving what everyone else shares on online.
Yeah, I agree.
It's unrealistic expectations that get set, I feel, these days as well.
Yeah, I agree. And you said something interesting then as well, which I totally resonate with, about being a founder versus being, say, a CEO.
Yeah.
Because quite often they're coupled up and it's like it's a married role. But overall, I do think they're different individuals. Like it might be the same role because someone has to wear a number of different hats, but I think they're different human beings. And that was sort of something that I really quickly discovered when I was in my transition out of the idea that I was going to be in Equalution forever and into sort of more of a role of, I think I'm an innovator. I think I'm a visionary, and I think I need to keep that momentum going. My job at Equalution, I see is done, and the next version of that business being scale up and, hundreds of millions of dollars and hundreds of staff. I'm like, I don't think that's for me. And it's really funny to go from reaching for the stars to putting a ceiling on where you stop. But I also think it's about knowing exactly who you are as well, which is also something that's pretty new to founders as well. You have to figure that shit out along the way.
But as well, like there comes a moment, at least for me anyway, where like there's a bit of guilt involved. It's like, am I like taking the easy way out?
Yeah.
Should I be, making myself do this? I'm so, blessed to be in such a lucky position. Why wouldn't I want to do that? But it's just knowing yourself and trusting yourself and knowing what will make you happy is more important. And what you just said, you've gone, like, I think you actually went through the scale up phase. The phase that you guys would have been going on next is really, it's almost like you're getting into corporate land. Like, let's get really big and structured, and certain people thrive in that situation.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, you kind of answered it. Where do you sit on that? Where do you feel like your best mode is for the business? Like your new business partner, what are kind of your roles in the new business?
So it's really funny because in my previous business, I was sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And Amal was real operations, finance based, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's reversed in this business. I'm very operations. Like I look at, P&L, I look at cost of acquisition, I look at, our margins and all that kind of stuff. And it's something that I've never really been in touch with before, but it's something that I think is a learned skill. And I think I was simply just not in the position with my previous business to exercise that because essentially we had different roles. As much as I love marketing and branding and I feel very, very strongly about it, I'm more of like an ideas person than I am like a strategy person. I prefer just like, I think we should do this because it aligns with that, the on the spot kind of stuff. But now I'm very operations and customer journey. So when they get to this point in time, what information are we feeding them? How are we getting them to think outside this box? How are we getting them to stay on with us, utilize this resource as an add-on, like all that kind of stuff that's involved in the journey. So it's like, it's our ops, you know?
And these ideas that come to you, do you feel like you're more of an intuitive person, or are you really heavy in market research and looking for opportunities, or is it a balance between the two?
I mean, I'm not unaware of what's happening around me and in spaces as well. I'm really heavy involved in the health and fitness industry, both in dealing with them as probably my target market, I would say, in Big Uppetite, but more so just like my interest is there. So I look at coaches, I look at what coaches are doing, their campaigns, like what they're doing on a season to season basis, like how they're operating with systems and stuff. So there's definitely an awareness of the outside, but overall it's very intuitive. It was sort of something that, I don't know, I was just kind of born with that thing with the creative side of things. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask is you spent 8 years almost at Equalution.
Yeah.
The last, 5 years started to become a big business with a large team.
Yeah.
How is it to now be back up in startup land with a very small team and everything is new? You're building from scratch versus, I'm assuming potentially you'd get a little bit comfortable and were a little bit in your comfort zone the last few years.
Oh, it's humbling. It's very, very humbling. Even just having gone through everything that I went through with the sale of my shares and whatnot, which was just a roller coaster, still continuing. But overall, I think that the whole process was just like very grounding. A lot of my lifestyle did change by choice because, I had more of a scarcity mindset, whereas when I was at Equalution, everything was in abundance. The help, the money, the clients, the community, everything was just like, it was just honestly it was just on rotation. Like everything just was there. And it didn't take a lot of of sweat towards the end.
Yeah.
You can make things happen. It's like, starting a new business from nothing versus starting a new business with 100,000 followers. Like talking to people can get you a result way more than trying to create the people to talk to in the first place.
And it's obviously different now, you starting from the experience and everything you've been able to build for yourself from the start. But my other question I wanted to ask about regarding the startup phase is, what are we, 8 years on from there approximately? How is it different starting a business now versus then? Obviously the channels are different, but talk to me about how different the experience is now and what you're doing with this new business compared to what you did with Equalution back in the day.
Well, I'm definitely more experienced now. So whereas, I was a very lean startup back in the day in the sense that it was Amal and I for 5 out of the 8 years sort of thing. My first intuitive motive was just like go hire someone quickly, do it real quick as you can afford it. So, my experience has led me to make different choices, but I think overall the space is really competitive. Like I'm seeing all sorts of things from business coaches on Instagram and social media and stuff now that I'm just like, please do not get in the driver's seat of someone else's business and steer that vehicle. Like it's actually mind blowing. And it's funny because I resonate so much with how I used to feel about dud coaches back when I started Equalution. We facilitated science-based flexible dieting and there were coaches saying cut carbs, don't eat after 5 p.m, clean eating, all that kind of stuff. And I feel inherently the same passion that I did about my space in dieting as I do about business coaching because I saw something on Instagram the other day. A woman was like, if you're sad, your business will be sad. If your energy's off, your business's energy will be off. And like to a degree, but like just bizarre things these days, So I think the space that I'm working in now is slowly becoming quite saturated. And it's off the back end of, I think, people wanting to make a buck.
Look, at the end of the day, I think even from 5 years ago when I started the business, I think everything's more saturated.
Yeah, it is.
The whole
it's
internet
monkey see,
boom and
monkey do.
Yeah, and so one person sees it and they started the business. I want to be that. One thing I have, and I say it to the team all the time, it makes me laugh, but also in a way, like it's kind of like, it doesn't make me angry, but it's unfortunate that people get sucked into these things. It's like similar to what you were saying. I see people that, sure, okay, just because you've made a couple $100,000 drop shipping, you should not be calling yourself a life coach or a business coach or any of this stuff. But the way people speak, they put on this act of such confidence and they suck people in. I'm like, this guy barely can grow a beard and you're taking advice from an 18-year-old about how you should structure your life and your relationships and your friendships and your business.
Yeah, it's very much preying on the vulnerable. And I think there's a lot of people that are super well-spoken and have done social media and been an influencer or, in at the forefront of fitness businesses or whatnot for a lot of years. The transition to business coaching is a different one. I think it does take experience. Like I was business coaching / consulting for at least a year before I started Big Uppetite and worked with, dozens and dozens of businesses, felt confident. My methods were essentially working, and then I dived into creating a firm off the back end of it. I think validating is really important, but I also think proven methods are super important as well. So you need to have a market, but you need to also get results.
And you also need to have runs on the board, which a lot of these people are just skipping ahead. They're like, okay, I've done like 3 months of success in business. I'm now going to become an e-com coach.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, each their own. Bless everyone who's out there trying. But overall, I just think it's a really sensitive space because, I even find it in the position that I'm in, people want to throw money at me because they think that I can make for them exactly what I made for myself. But I was in the trenches, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for years and years. And I think that's, something that I always share to my clients at the start is like, I will give you the tools, but you have to kind of do the work. So I think the business coaching space is going to get quite interesting in the coming years.
Exactly. But that's the thing. It's like you're almost fighting an unfair battle at times because someone even that's achieved the incredible level of success that you have, you want to be honest and set these honest expectations. Whereas a lot of the other people may just want to set that unrealistic expectation. You're all going to be rich. Give me 3 months and $10,000 and you'll set yourself up for life. So it's an interesting battle. Something we had to deal with even with my product-based business. We have people that launch cheaper products and they'll promise the world this, that, guaranteed this, FDA approved. They're fucking not. And it makes the whole industry kind of be tarnished. So it's like really choose the people you work with in terms of, I say this to people, if you're going to work with an agency, really make sure they know what they're doing. You can develop a good relationship with them. And if you're going to work with a business consultant or someone that can help you, or is going to be along next to you as you scale your business, make sure you do the research on them and who they are and what they've done. Otherwise, it's just there's a lot of cowboys out there.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And don't get me wrong, like I even had my, little moment after I resigned from Equalution where I thought, was I a one-hit wonder? Like, was this just a one-time thing that, will not happen again? And it was through the results and the fact that you get your hands dirty in other businesses and you see that it is very much a formula, right? And you can repeat that and you can achieve success with other businesses. But I think it is really important to sort of if, it's a path that people want to take, like I think experience in anything that you do before you start taking, people's money is super important.
I want to ask you a question about your exit, obviously. I assume there was a day, or I want to ask, was there a day along the journey at some point? It might have been a year or 2 years ago, or it might have been 5. I don't know. But was there a day of that along the Equalution journey that you realized that you fell out of love with it?
Yeah, it was, I think we had a product meeting, which was to strategize the new features and the rollout. And we started to plan really far ahead when we got senior executives. So CTOs and whatnot meant that we planned, whereas Amal and I were really like, oh God, summer's coming up. Let's do a spring into summer challenge. That was us, But then once we got an executive team, we really had to plan quite diligently. Yeah. And we were starting to plan ahead. And I remember sitting in this boardroom and I thought, I don't agree. We're losing ourselves. And then I thought, B, I'm not going to be here for that. And that was when I was like, I think I'm going to make a maneuver. Yeah. And to be honest, like it's a pretty ballsy one. Like I left with nothing. Like I didn't know exactly what the business was worth when I left. I just resigned. There was obviously like my co-founder Amal had a vision for the business that was A, and then I had one that was B, and they were very different. So that was a big deciding factor. Someone had to make the move. Yeah. And I just thought I'm going to start again. Yeah. And I didn't have any sort of security that was going to happen in the same way that it happened the first time. But I think I just had a really strong self-belief that this can't be. I cannot be a one-hit wonder.
Where do you think your drive and self-belief comes from?
I think I've always had it. I think I was always someone that was a bit of a dreamer. Like, I want to do this. I want to be this. And it was always something that was a little bit unconventional. Like I dropped out of law school to take a job at Google because I thought I'd climb that way. And then I quit Google to go to Silicon Valley to start the Equalution. And, it was all very just unconventional. Yeah. But everything was just like on adrenaline with big vision in mind. So
I'm the same. I have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of big ideas, but I don't necessarily need to plan out every step. I'm like, that's where I want to go. I'm just going to start. Yeah. And like some people, that really scares other people. They're like, they want to know this step, next step, that step. And I'm like, honestly, I don't know.
You need to surrender to just experience, right? Like, if I had created rules around my future, like maybe Big Uppetite wouldn't have started. And it's been an incredible ride so far, and it's only going to keep going, from good to great. So like you do have to have a bit of a space for a spontaneity and just things that work that weren't planned, but you should run with them because they feel good and they're working, so.
Well, talk to me about the early days of Equalution. How did it start? Was that something you game planned long term, or was it kind of spontaneous?
Accident.
I did not say that word right. Spontaneous.
It was an accident again. So basically, Amal and I were fitness models, and we were clean eating, and we were eating like really rigidly fish, asparagus, egg whites, broccoli, chicken. That's it. And anyhow, we stepped on stage for our first show, and we didn't look that good, and we were like, we did all the right things. We followed bodybuilding.com and everything our coach said, like we must have done something wrong. And we found this guy in our area, and we heard that his clients were eating ice cream and losing weight, very taboo at the time. So we made an appointment with him, and we sat down with him, and he started teaching us about macros, and we were just like, we had this moment, we were like, what the hell? It all makes sense. And then anyhow, he didn't really love writing diet plans. So we got one off him and it was working. I lost a couple of kilos in the first week on like 2,200 calories. Yeah. We were eating bread and cereal and we thought it was the bee's knees. Yeah. And then anyhow, he had clients that he was doing meal plans for and he didn't quite enjoy it. And he said, if I give you guys numbers, you guys love writing meal plans. Do you want to write the meal plans? We're like, yeah, sure. We'll write the meal plans. Yeah. Anyhow, and then he would give us a little slice of the pie. And then we started to grow as the three of us. We decided, do you want to go 3 ways? He said, yep. So we made Equalution. And then we got pretty early on in the journey where we said to him, we see potential in this. We were working full-time at Google. We said, do you want to take it full-time? He said, no, I want to open a supplement store. I don't want to do this full-time. Anyhow, he opened a supplement store, Booty and Buff Nutrition at Carringba. Yeah. And anyhow, and so we ended up going separate ways, amicably, still one of our great friends. We went to his wedding, both of us, a couple of weeks back, which was really nice. It's like a full circle moment sort of thing. Anyhow, so and then we just started Equalution, really manual. We're doing things on Google Sheets, PDFs and whatnot, and then decided to build an app. So we quit our full-time jobs at Google and took a one-way ticket to Silicon Valley.
Do you think your friend regrets it? It's not quite the leaving Facebook early, but it was pretty big thing to miss out on.
Yeah, I mean, he might have a different opinion behind closed doors, but to everyone else, I think we all ended up in our right spots.
That's the thing. Like, you never know if he was to come along, it might not have ended up being what it was. And no disrespect to him, it just would have been a completely different thing.
Yeah,
you don't
for
know,
sure.
And
you know what? Some people are just like, even with someone like him, like he's so knowledgeable and passionate about dieting, training, supplements. If you walk into his supplement store, he will tell you about the supplement you want and then anything else you need to know about body transformations. He's just super passionate. And I really think you could have said that to ended up being, the company that was, and he would be like, I don't really care. I love what I do, you know? So, I do think that, it would be funny to think about the one that got away, but also as well, I think, he just not super keen on
And you have to be though, if you're going to go in with someone on a startup journey, you have to be all in and you have to be equally in. Like, it's so funny. I have a few similarities with you. Like, I was also at law school for a little bit.
Oh, were you?
I didn't quite make it as far as you.
4/5 of a lawyer, I say.
I made it one semester in and that was it.
Did you? Yeah, it's a horrible degree, isn't it?
It sucks.
Dry.
And you don't know. That's the thing. I don't regret it because I had to know, but I was depressed. I'm not depressed. I hated it.
Yeah.
I never went back to uni, so didn't quite make it. And then I had a business partner who launched with, and we were like such good friends. And we went through, he exited maybe like a year in, and that was such a big learning experience to go through and exit, right? And we're still such great friends, and he actually he's proved not a one-hit wonder.
Did you buy him out? Or
I bought him out.
You did? Okay, yeah.
But again, you think what would have happened, would have been easier with 2 people, would have been one partner. Even now that I've gone and we've built Happy Skin Co with one person, I still prefer, if I was going to start a business, I would prefer to do it with someone.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you're going through, you want to celebrate the highs with someone just as much as you want someone to get you through the lows. Because at the end of the day, and you probably have multiple experiences at this with Amal at Equalution, is that there's some days where you just have these problems and you're sitting there, it's midnight, 1 a.m. and you can't go home until you solve this problem. And having someone else beside you to get you through those moments is priceless. So
well, we even saw that all the way up until the very end. We had a big period of time where we, weren't in touch and there were lawyers that were speaking on our behalf. And, it was really sad in that respect. And then we actually had our first buyer fall through for Equalution. So we got all the way through the process. And after 6 months, we ended up terminating because of lack of performance. I don't even know if I can talk about this, but whatever. Anyway, and then cut a long story short, we had to regroup after that. And it rekindled us, to be totally honest with you. And we kind of made a pretty firm decision that she would need to be really comfortable with who took my position from a shareholder perspective afterwards. And I would need to be comfortable with the deal that I exit with. So overall, we were crossing the finish line together and we started together, and that's the way it should be, you know? So I think exits, a lot of ego can get involved, and I wish I started the process as the learned individual that I am now from it all. But everyone's in it for themselves, and it can be quite dark and it's sad as well because it's the end of an era. I was even telling telling Amal the other night, like I sent her a photo and I said I started to document my journey out of Equalution just in case like I ever shared it on Instagram or something. And there was like a video of me like hysterically crying, and I just set my camera up one day and I just spoke to the camera and I was like, I just miss her so much. I miss her so much. And like it was literally like a breakup, and you know, there's highs and lows throughout all that process, but overall, I think everyone ends differently in a partnership because everything comes to an end, right? And I just think if you can finish it the same way you started, like that's a credit to the co-founders, because direction can change, but you guys did something amazing together. So it's best just to go out on a high. You know, I see that now. And you know, things were looking a bit different like a year ago. But
that's the same as me. Like I had dinner with George, who was my business partner, like maybe a month ago. And like as you're going through and I won't talk about too much details, but one day we're going to do a full episode on it, but we'll save the details. But like we did so well going through it. Like there's times you're talking to lawyers a little bit, and like but like now that I've gone through that experience and saw how we navigated it, and now I've seen other people trying to exit their business with co-founders and seeing the really bad experience they've had. I'm like, well, we actually did really well. And like you do, of course, have a little bit of space after, like you're living in each other's pockets for so much time, but then like the last few years, or especially the last year, like closer than we were before even, like it's just a journey you need to go on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the only thing that can get in the way at that point in time for people who don't come together in the end is really just like, it's just ego, or someone's done something really unforgivable. But overall, if it's just a little bit of heartbreak, like everyone can just, you know, wipe off their knees and get up and go
you're
again.
so much more, I assume you are going into a next business venture, going through you're more of a realist. You understand that some things don't last forever, but like it was my first business. I was like 23, 24 when I started it. You don't think about planning out those details, what happens at the end of it when you start.
I sometimes feel sorry for Jenna with the way that my head thinks, as opposed to, you know, the fairy tale that she kind of is in right now, where like we met at Christmas and then we started business, because like I'm a little bit more, I've seen different, you know, stages of partnership and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit more just careful. Like, you know, when we first started, I don't think Jenna would have thought about a shareholders agreement or anything, but I'm like, fucking shareholders agreement, for sure. You know, all that you kind of, you got it. Yeah. So I think it's important to have fun with your business partner, because that's a big part of business, that if you're lucky to experience it, you are a lucky human. I think. Because, you know, I'm sure that there's, you know, businesses out there that just do it for the buck, and I think that's sad for them, only because I know what's on the other side of that, which is like having so much passion and love for what you do, and the late nights and the laughs and then the cries, and it's all the fun of it, right?
And like the nightmares, like you're thinking if we don't solve this issue, the business is done.
Literally
like
doing calculations in your head like at midnight and stuff. Like there's been times where my partner's looked at me and said, just stop thinking.
Well, you can't sometimes. When you had that moment I asked you about, when you realised, hey, maybe I'm in love with this journey anymore, how long was the lag between when you realised that and when you pulled the trigger?
Like a month.
That's so quick.
Yeah, a month. I'm pretty like that. It's hard for me to stay in something that, you know, I just feel like it's hard for me to do something I don't want to do.
That's really brave though. Even though like you're following what's best for you, it is also really brave to back yourself and have the guts to be like, you know, I know this is right for me, and I know I'm stepping away from a fucking really big business, but I'm just. I remember
when and it's changed a little bit, like since there was a few meetings that were surrounding this particular topic, but I remember the first ever, like 3 or 4 months after I left, valuation meeting that we had, where they were talking about what the business was valued. I had no bloody idea. I was sitting there like, I wonder what I'm going to walk away with. Like I had no idea, you know, what I was even.
So you didn't leave knowing, hey, I'm going to get X.
No, nothing. I wish I would have thought all that through. I would have saved myself a lot of, you know, like stress and just anxiety of what if or what not, or, you know, et cetera. But overall, I think maybe just happened as it was meant to. And like, obviously I chose my path, which was that no matter what the outcome was on a financial front, that I was going to make it again, or, you know, not let it get me down or whatever. But I was just lucky in all of it, you know, just all worked out happily.
And I think about like, what would I do like with this business long term, and what would I do if I ever did want to sell? Not that I'm thinking about it right now, but in the future. And you get these doubts that creep into your head. It's only natural. Fuck, can I do it again? Would I do it again? What if I ran out of money? But then like I get honest with myself. I'm like, sometimes I'm working on something and I'm like pumping it out. You just have those really productive days and you're killing it. It's like 10:30 at night and you're still feeling great. You're like, you know what? I could have no money and I'd back myself. I know I'll be all right.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that totally. And I think I remember the first thing I did after Equalution was I took a CMO temp contract with Body Science.
Yeah.
And I was working the marketing space there, and creatively I was going bonkers upstairs. Like I was thinking of so many different things, but it wasn't my business. And then even though it was a temp contract and I was essentially a consultant, I was like, there's no way I am not going to be in the driver's seat again after this. Like that was my first kind of realization of I'm not a worker, I'm a founder. I'm a founder that works, you know?
What's the difference between like, okay, if you're working on your own business, you have all the drive and enthusiasm and passion and you need to do it, because if you don't, you're kind of fucked. But then what's it like to be in a business and let's just say you had a lot of control and autonomy, but then you don't really have the same sort of stakes attached to it? How did you find working in those conditions?
My work ethic's always been really good, and I was on an extremely high executive salary. I think they said I was maybe one of the highest paid that they'd had. So I had to be worth it. I wanted to make sure that I was worth it for them and worked really hard. But like I had an idea for the company, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter because it's not mine. So I think that's the difference between being an employee versus being a founder, is that decider of like, well, where is it going? And I think only the founder can lead the road for that, you know?
I think in a way there is a benefit to the other side, because you can approach everything with a clearer mind, because you don't have all the stress and pressure on the weight of your world. So you can kind of analyze problems and opportunities with a little bit more like a clear mind and without looking at stressing about all the negatives. Leave that for the person who's going to sign off on it. But approaching it with a little bit more freedom and flexibility may be beneficial.
Yeah. It was, what I really loved was like, I loved seeing someone else love something so much. Like Greg and Nath, the founders of Body Science, they know supplements inside out, and they source the most quality products and quality ingredients for their products. And just seeing someone so obsessed with a space, that was cool. Like I was under that, and they, they have a massive warehouse, and they'd be out in the warehouse with the packers, and, they'd be testing and they'd send me samples. What do you think? And like so involved. And like these men have been in this company for, decades, right? You think that stuff wears thin as you get into business. Imagine being 25 years in and still got it. Like that's pretty special, So it was cool to see that. It was definitely, it was just all a really good experience, like part of that coming out of Equalution was finding who I was. And that took I honestly felt like a kid without training wheels. Coming out of a business for 8 years that I started when I was, a kid, I started when I was 21 years old. I had to relearn essentially the workplace and what I was good at. And, at the start, especially as a consultant, I tried to do everything. And I'm like, don't do everything. You're not good at everything. Try and do the things that you're good at and make that and that's how Big Uppetite was born, because we found what we're good at and we didn't say we could do it all, So
do you think Big Uppetite for you could be the next 10 to 15 year project? Is it something you're in long term, or what's your thoughts?
No, I don't think it's going to be the only thing, only because I've wireframed an app and I cannot stop thinking about it. So that's the only reason. And the customers that I deal with day to day need what I want to deliver. So I'm just like, it'll be in conjunction. Like I hope that it gets to a point, where it's like Gary V's agency, and it's got a brand reputation. It's got internal processes and people flow through and know the experience that they get on the other side. That has all been predetermined by myself and Jenna's methods. But overall, I think I need to create tech. Well, I know I need to create tech again.
And what about, like, you do a lot of speaking and podcasts and stuff. Why do you do that? Is that something you want to continue to do long term? Is it something you're passionate about? Or
I do love it. I love it. And I thought I'd go a bit stale, to be honest with you. I thought I'd get on, I started doing podcasts quite a while ago. It started with Ice from YKTR. That was my very first podcast.
Soundboard, right?
Yeah, soundboard. Yeah. So we would just have the best chats and I loved it. And then I did Jordan's Room, which was a bit of fun. And it was just like all a bit of like different flavors here and there. And then I think I got invited on a couple and just did like quite a few here and there. And I just think like I'm pretty honest and upfront, and there's a lot of people out there that are just hanging for the sign of which direction do I go? What do I do? And I mean, if I can give a bit of that, so be it. I'm no learned total expert. Like I'm a work in progress and the first to say that. Yeah, I'm like 30, I was going to say 29, 30 years old. So I'm sure that in a decade's time, the quality of my expertise will be far more than what it is now. But if I can give something, I love doing it.
Like that's the same as me, because there's so many people out there that there's two main things that they'll get from these podcasts. Obviously there's entertainment, which is one thing, but like there's education. People can learn from the lessons, but it doesn't even always need to be education. Sometimes it's just inspiration and making people feel like there is a path for me. There is something I can do. And like I'm the same. I've always been a big talker, and like I acted in between law and business, so I don't mind a bit of like public speaking and stuff. And like because I was lucky enough, I've spent quite a bit of time with Gary Vee around the world.
Oh really?
And like that was one of the best experiences of my life. And I remember being in his office in New York, and like I've seen so many podcasts in that room, and I just thought, wow, like anything is possible.
Yeah.
But the thing about that, and like this is going back to comparisons, like I watch, because I was spending full days with him. And Gary Vee, and any clip you see of Gary Vee or on a podcast, he's exactly the same 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
You can point a camera at him at any random time and you're going to get clips. And sometimes when we're filming some clips, I'm like, you can't just point a camera at me. I'm going to fumble over words. I need to plan things out. But it's like, that's fine for me that's why like I was hesitant about putting out content for a long time, because I didn't feel like, who am I? I'm just like, who am I to speak about that? But it's
syndrome.
A little bit, but it's like, maybe I'm just my own harshest critic at times.
Yeah,
and like
100%.
there's so much value. And even we're up to like, I don't know, we've released 16 or 17 episodes and the feedback has been so good. I'm like, this 100% was the right move.
For sure.
To go back to the exit quickly, I want to ask you, the day you signed the contract, what emotions were going through your mind when you signed it?
Well, I just signed the second one.
Okay. So still an ongoing process for you.
Yeah. I just signed the second one, and because of the first experience, like I just have in my head it's not done until the money's in the account.
Yeah.
Like that's that's what my perspective is now. So there's been I haven't had that moment yet.
Yeah.
I've had accidental moments where like pre-celebrated way too early. Like investor one, we had like a couple of nights out, and I was like, oh Jesus, I way too early celebrated that victory that hadn't yet happened, and then that fell through.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall I think I will that will be a moment. Like that will be a real, and I'm so happy with the outcome as well. So I think that's really important. The previous one I was a bit I was just like, oh, just get it.
Wasn't fully satisfied?
Yeah, wasn't fully satisfied. I was just like, get it done.
Yeah.
And then this one I'm so happy. So I feel as though that will feel different.
I'm excited for you. It's exciting times, right?
So am I. It is really exciting. It was a year on Monday that I had left Equalution. Yeah. So it's been a big year.
And what personal traits or qualities do you think you've had to either develop over the years or lean on in order to be successful?
Resilience. I have realized even through the exit process, like I'm not non-emotional in the sense that like I don't feel things. I probably feel things more than the average person, which has always been a blessing and a curse. Yeah. But overall, I've just learned that I'm just so tough, like real tough, and almost in maybe like a too masculine kind of way. Like, you know, I had a conversation with someone that was like really important in the exit of the Equalution exit, and I got off the phone and I said to Amal, I'm like, I was just expecting, like I was so nervous to have this conversation because he was such an important person. And I said, he just dropped his Dax at me. He got so nervous. And I'm like, I'm meant to get nervous. Yeah. But I just must be like, you know, a little bit intimidating when it comes to, you know, professional things and laying down the law. So I have learned that I'm a bit tough. And I think it's got me through a lot, like heaps.
And on that point, do you think, has there been any time over your journey where you've potentially sacrificed relationships or a personal life in order to achieve what you have?
100%. I have just got into a relationship. It's been 9 months. We met in November, and I'm a super late bloomer. Like I was single for a lot of years before I met him. Before that, I just dated sort of thing. Was never in like a proper relationship. I wouldn't say my work hindered it, but it like in the sense that like, oh, I don't have time for you, I'm working. Like all of that kind of stuff was that all those hard years of work happened before I started essentially dating. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I just found it really hard, like overall. You know, they say they don't care that, you know, you've got money and all that, but that it will come out in all weird ways.
I imagine as well, for you being the female, it will be, even though they won't say it at the start, for some guys.
Sometimes it just rolls out in weird ways.
Yeah,
you know, the jealousy creeps in and all that kind of shit. And then the like, you know, insecurities and all that.
The insecurities, and then would be a big one.
It could be their problem or it could be who I am in their life or something like that. I'm not really sure, but I definitely had a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of guys will be surprised because they'll look at you and see quite a feminine person, but they don't understand like the male polarity you might have and the male energy in those sorts of situations.
Yeah.
And if they're not aware of those sorts of, you know, relationship dynamics, they won't really know. They'll just be like, what is going on?
But I had to learn as well, like my partner, Matt, who is like my person, with him, he's so loving and caring, and I had to learn to accept that. Like if someone wants to, you know, do the washing and fold my sheets and stuff, just let him. Like that, I had to kind of let go of my doing everything for all the time and being in control and all that kind of stuff. So I think there was a lot about being in a relationship that I also had to learn as well, which probably made sense as to why previous things on both sides maybe didn't work out. I don't think I was ever, you know, really ready, but that whole leaving Equalution experience as well really kind of grounded me in a lot of ways, and it just all happened at the right time.
Yeah, another thing so similar, like I was single, like obviously there was like some dating in between since I was like 21, 22, and only last year, towards the end of last year, like did I start seeing my partner now. And for me, it was just like, it wasn't that I was too busy, it was so far away from my radar. Right? It was just, I wasn't even thinking about it. I wasn't interested in it. And I still wasn't until like I met Mel. And then even like, the funniest thing is about how I met Mel. I won't go into details on the podcast, but it was, I'd known her for 18 months and we actually started working on a business together.
Oh, really?
And I'm never the type of person that would want to mix business and relationships. But after like 18 months of being really good friends and, you know, working on this idea, just 1 second, everything changed. Oh, you're
kidding. That's
really
funny.
Yeah, it's the best. She lives with me. Like it's been amazing, but like.
It is such a nice thing to find, you know, like. It's funny because I said these words came out of my mouth. When about a year and a half before I left Equalution, I went through a really funny phase of like, I'm 27, I've got everything I ever dreamed of. Why am I A, so lonely, and B, why is it so empty? And it was just a really odd time where I just hadn't quite figured out that I was moving through a journey and I was coming into a different phase of life and trust the process, all that kind of stuff. But I really was so down about, you know, I used to see relationships and be like, I want that, you know, not in like a desperado kind of way, but overall I was just not ready, but ready, you know what I mean? And I mean, like I look back at that period of time and I said I'd give it all up to find love. Wow. I would give up everything I've got just to find love. And essentially I did give up all I had when, you know, when I left the business, not knowing what was on the other side, and found it. And it was funny because it was a time in my life, November last year, where not a lot was sorted. I hadn't met Jenny yet. We hadn't started Big Uppetite. I hadn't got like a second business under my belt, a valuation, cash from the previous business, nothing. And I was the happiest I could ever imagine. So it was just such a good realization of like, yes, your work is important and business for me is like in my DNA. Like it's something that I will forever do. It doesn't matter. You know, I could, essentially I'm almost semi-going to with motto with the exit, but nothing could change what I would wake up and do the next day for work. Like I will always do this.
That's important.
Big time. But in saying that as well, so's life. And that really became real, you know, throughout that process of just like finding love after like all of these years. I was like, fuck, it makes me so happy and it's not work.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like there's so many different ways it can happen, right? For me, it's like I don't think I was necessarily ready. I met the person that I realized, fuck, I should be with forever. And I'm like, I have to. Yeah, I'm not going to be ready. And that's the thing. Like I was never like trying to date, but like came across a lot of different people and none of them made me feel like I'd ever even want to sacrifice a night of work, let alone, have more of a normal life. And
Yeah.
when I say a normal life, like I still do everything I need to do, but like there's some days where like I want to finish work at like 6:30
And
to
then
come home and spend the night with them. Whereas
yeah, for
before,
sure.
like why would I ever do that? But like I still want to do that. And
Yeah.
like I feel like if you can have that sort of stability at home in your personal life, it does make it even easier because as you know, even if you have a business partner, the journey of like entrepreneurship and starting a business is very lonely.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I mean, there's only so much fulfillment that a business can give, and then at the end of the night when you turn the lights off, like it's just you. So there's someone else that needs to be cared for in yourself as well at like all times. So
a question I wanted to ask you. It's a bit random, but if you could have a business dinner with any person in the world to pick their brain for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, who would you pick?
There's this American billionaire that I'm just obsessed with, and his name's Tillman Fertitta. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's big in hospitality. He owns Bubblegum Shrimp Co. He owns, I think, an NBA team as well. Just puts his money where the opportunity is, essentially. Like not necessarily, specializing in one space, but he's just a businessman, right? And I just love his thought process and his approach, and even every single podcast I've listened to, like he's pretty frank, and he always is the first to say like, I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I just get business, and I get that. Like I fully understand that. I remember he's pretty like kind of old school almost as well. Like he said, if I ever want to know how one of my restaurants are going, I will pull up in the car park and I'll take a step out of my car and assess what every moment's like from the second I step out of my car to walking in the doors, from whether there's cigarette butts in the gutters, whether there's finger marks on the windows. And he said, and from when I walk in to when I sit down, customer experience for me needs to be on point, and that's what I instill in all my venues. And I love that thought process and philosophy, because I do think I think being customer-centric businesses are the ones that will survive.
Yeah. Have you had mentors along the way, or did you guys kind of figure it all out yourselves?
No, we mostly figured it out ourselves. We had an accountant who took a bit of like a mentor seat a couple of years back, and he was pretty good at what he did, but he was an accountant, you know, and that was his space. And I think businesses and the people that run them, the visionaries, they have a bit of a different makeup to, really good professionals like that specialize in just one field.
Yeah.
I
had that exact experience, but it was a really important growth process for me, because I launched the business green as like a couple corporate jobs but no business experience, and we had incredible success. And like, what do you do when you're making so much money you don't know what to do with, right? And then like it becomes very easy to waste money as a business if you're doing that. But very luckily, just after about the year point in, we brought in like a really senior finance manager who I'm just lucky enough that it's my cousin.
Oh, cool.
But he's from like big corporate space. He was managing like the NBN project, like not for NBN, but like consultancy for $1 billion projects. And he came in and he taught me a lot of things that, well, for one, we were doing wrong. But also there was a bit of a battle for a while, because he was getting me to do so many things I didn't want to do. It's like, no, you need to understand this for this reason, because he's my cousin. He wants me to learn for the future. And I resisted that at times. I'm like, fuck, can you just do it? Like, this is what we pay you for. Can you just do it? He's like, no, you need to understand that. And now, thank God I went through that, because I have so much more of a full understanding of business and the concept, and like what you've moved more into now, operations and P&Ls and finances. It's so important to do that. Maybe if you want to be into a business for a year, but if you want to try and be in business your whole life, you need to at least 100%. Have a basic understanding. And really sometimes it takes you being pushed to step outside your comfort zone.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. I wish I had mentors from the perspective of even just having someone to talk to. And then secondly to that, like, I wish I had someone just to go through options with me, because sometimes like you don't know what you don't know, right? Even when we were we were moving into the tech space from manual business, like I would have loved to know a million more things that we found out later along the track. And sometimes it just does take experience. So having someone to say, this is where, and I say it to my clients now, like sometimes, I've got a client that's thinking about doing an app, and I sort of rolled out the red carpet and gave, my spiel on what I thought and whatnot. And I remember talking and thinking, I wish I had this. I wish I had this.
But do people realize how much, are they surprised how much it costs to build and properly run an app?
Yeah.
They don't understand, right?
Nah, especially because especially in my space, there's so many white label things.
And they can just
and
slap your branding on it.
Yeah.
How are they? Do they? I imagine they're not.
Nah.
They're so generalized. It's going to be really difficult to.
They're no good.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one out there that I'm like amazed by right now.
What drew you guys to go to Silicon Valley? Did you feel like you probably weren't going to find the right people in Australia?
Yeah, we just knew it was the tech hub of the world, so we just took the old one-way ticket there and just said, let's see what happens. But we were working at Google, so we had a fair understanding that that's where she gets done.
Yeah, of course.
And we actually went over there to find a CTO, so I think that's what drove that decision.
What did you learn being over there? How long were you there for?
We were there for about just under 6 months.
What an experience.
It was really good. We weren't there just specifically. We ended there in the end. But we just learned that we're onto something. And I think it was the biggest boost of confidence that we needed, because we had like grown men that were wanting to take a slice of the pie and throw money at us. And we'd only had I think our manual business was doing like maybe $100,000 a year then or something at that point in time. And that's all we had. It was just a validated thing, and it wasn't really operating on anything tech, but it was an idea that we wanted to create. So even without having put anything in motion in that regard, like these blokes just wanted to invest, and we were like, wow, like we should do this on our own. Like we should go home and make enough money where we don't need to have investors, and that's what we did.
What was the first version of the app like?
Hilarious. It was so fucked. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Like we literally got it and it didn't work. We paid $280,000 for it. Got it done offshore, and then we just said, all right, let's start again.
Fuck. $280,000 down the toilet.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't clutching at straws for cash, but we weren't flush either. Yeah. So we just kind of copped it on the chin as a loss.
With each of these versions, did you at least allow you to achieve a little bit more of scale to bring in more money for the bigger build, or it was all like bigger build was this out?
Nah, we couldn't even roll the fucked one out.
Yeah.
So funny. We were just like, I remember it shuffled a meal once and it gave like a liter of milk with like 10 grams of cereal, and we're like, oh, the algorithm doesn't work.
Yeah.
And they just handed it over, and we inherited the responsibility. We didn't read the dotted line. We signed on the dotted line, not reading anything within the term sheet. And it was just a loss. But
so with Equalution, you think a lot of your success was down to community building? That was like one of your number one things, right?
Yeah.
How'd you build the community? Obviously the results transformations were, I'm assuming, a big part of it and amazing. And you were really the first two clients of the business.
Yeah. So the results were a huge factor. Obviously, weight loss, body transformations. It's a really emotive service. So it's a space where people are feeling a lot when they're going through this in terms of self-confidence, and happy customers in that regard are really happy to share, like I don't know if you've even found this in your business when you've had someone that's had bad skin or something and then they've got a result, and the essence of the testimonial has just got far more weight than those that just kind of use because they're loyal to the brand, So those clients that were shouting from the rooftops were really doing wonders for us. And then we just really were quite clever in how we connected them to each other. We incentivized creating individual accounts to log their journey. So if you search Equalution on Instagram, you'll see thousands of accounts that are not just Equalution. It'll be like Laura.Equalution journey. We had all the team create a Equalution Instagram account. So .Equalution team is all Equalution staff, and they share their own clients' results. They share recipes. It's just, there was a lot of presence online. And then, of course, our Instagram page really helped too, because we grew quite quickly. I think the page itself is up to like 280K now, which I know is not through the roof, but it's eyes, and it's people ready to watch. And if you look on the reels, they get substantial views, and there's just a lot of people waiting for what we do next. And I think a lot of that also comes down to right time. We were born out of a space where people were making money off telling people, not to eat, and we were telling people to eat what they wanted. So it was like a very opportunistic sort of time in which people supported us. Yeah. So we were really
But it also makes you feel good and like you're doing the right thing. Like I know for us, when we get before and after sent to us, and there's been a lot, and the ones that don't, like you see like the normal people, like the 25-year-old like girl who sends through, and that's cool. But the ones that really like make you feel good is like the mums that lived out kind of semi-rural and didn't have the money or the time to get to a laser hair removal clinic to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And they go like, you won't believe it, but like I've been struggling with all this excess body hair for years, and I never had anything to do about it. And it really was affecting my self-worth and my self-esteem. And this has genuinely changed it for me.
Yep.
And I don't think about it too much, but because you're trying, it's a beauty product essentially. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, it's not. And if you can like attach your business to something good, it just makes it such a better journey.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I think I don't know if I would ever put myself in a position where I'm, driving a vehicle that doesn't mean much to me, So I think that was always really important to me. And having come from Equalution, it set the bar pretty high because I was really passionate for a lot of time before. Like I don't care about nutrition now. Yeah. I'm totally honest with you. Like if I saw a dieting study or something like that, I'd probably even flick past it. Yeah. Whereas there was a point in my life where I just absorbed it all as knowledge. And I loved watching Lane Norton. I loved listening to him. I would rewrite, studies and things that he had done in layman's terms and say, Lane Norton says, rah, rah, rah. Like I loved the space that I was in. So I couldn't really have asked to be more passionate because I was really there.
Honestly, an hour's flown. I want to ask you three more questions and then wrap up.
Yeah.
The first question I'll ask you, and I know you're not from ecom, but you're tremendously experienced in ecom because a lot of our listeners are interested in that space. If you're ever going to start an e-commerce product-based business, have you ever thought about what that product or industry might be for you?
Yeah. I'm going to do it.
You're going to do it?
Yeah,
Maybe
I am.
don't tell us then.
I'm doing.
You can tell us. No, go for it.
No. I'm happy to say it. So, it's actually on behalf of my sister.
Yeah.
But we want to start tanning teas. So
tanning teas.
Yeah, girls self tan. Yeah. So like what you wear to bed, what you wear to and from the tanning salon.
Yeah.
Doesn't really exist. Usually boyfriend teas or Qantas PJs are what people do now. Yeah. So I don't think that there is necessarily like a winning product that's out there to grab and it's not been touched yet. Like there will always be something new. I think it's what's behind it from like a visionary standpoint that makes it what it is. Like how are people treating that product and then talking about it? How is their sales experience continuing beyond that transaction to making them a loyal customer and giving them a journey and whatnot. So I don't necessarily, like I'm not afraid to say, I might do this and that someone else might do it because I know how I do it and, that's sort of what's important to me.
That's the thing. That's the biggest thing. It's like, but even like you could say it and 100 people say, that's amazing, I'm going to do it, and they won't do it anyway.
I think, what is quite an interesting space if anyone is like sort of just looking for something. I do think passion's important, but I mean, if you're looking for something, I think anything that's baby product related is probably a hot space to watch, like, car seats, eating like dinnerware and all that kind of stuff for kids and soft play stuff. Like I think there's something in that space just because mums are a great market as well. Yeah. So,
and that's the thing, like I'm all for now, like building businesses around passions, hence the podcast. But I don't think there's anything wrong with building a business that can be a vehicle to change your life. Like, I'll tell you a secret. I wasn't super passionate about laser hair removal before I started the business.
Really?
Yeah. But it's made me incredibly happy. I do love the business. I love what it's been able to do. I love what we've done as a company. But now then, like, like now I can launch a podcast and there's so many different things that can come off the back of that. Next question I wanted to ask you. It's something I ask a lot of people in business. I assume you probably have a lot, but what do you think would be your hardest day in business?
The day I decided to leave it. Definitely. Yeah. I remember the day. I was so just like, it was like I was here, but I wasn't here. And I was so sad because it was like sending a child off to college, but not returning to collect the kid. It was like putting it up for adoption, essentially. It was, it was pretty hard. Yeah. But also happy.
Yeah. It's a bittersweet day.
It's a fairy tale. I wanted to ask you something about, influencer marketing. Like I remember when I first saw your brand and it was in the hands of an influencer.
Yeah.
Do you think that is a huge key for anyone that's wanting to grow a business, just put your product in the right hands as well?
I think it is, definitely. I think it'll always be an important part. I just think it does change from time to time. Like we could have given it to anyone back in the day and they would have sold product.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very different now because consumer behavior changes. People are aware of what advertising is and what people's jobs are in terms of promoting products. So we're a lot more selective with people we work with now. They really do have to be in alignment with your brand. And in terms of creating content, like we try to work more with content creators rather than just influencers. Posting with, hey, holding a Happy Skin Co handset isn't really going to achieve the same sort of results that it would 4 years ago. Whereas now if we're going to work with creators, we want them to take us along on their journey, how they use the product, why they love it, and how it fits into their routine. So I think it's amazingly important to pick the right people you partner with, but also like anything else, with influencer marketing, for looking at it as like a business tactic, there's going to be people that are going to massively overprice themselves and there's going to be some that underprice themselves and there's going to be some in the middle. You have to look for, like with anything else, where the value lies. If you're someone who's starting up a business and you don't have a lot of money in the bank, you can't just pick an influencer to work with because you like them. You really need to look at who's most likely to drive value in return for me.
Yeah, who aligns.
Otherwise, you're going to run out of runway really quickly. So it's getting harder.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be, I think it's always going to be important, especially look at like Facebook CPMs compared to 5 years ago. The costs of some of these channels are going through the roof. Always finding the right people to work with, I think is going to be important. I don't see it not being a massive tactic.
That really grew Equalution. I remember also partnerships were for free back when I started as well. So it was like, oh, do you want to try our diet plan? We do fat loss and, you know, an influencer would lose like 5 kilos and be super grateful and talk about it. And now there's like such a huge price tag attached and it's like, oh my God.
I remember the first influencer we worked with had 50,000 followers and he did it for just the product for free. And now someone will have 5,000 like, yeah, I'm $500. How much money do you think you're going to return for a brand? And like we mainly look at influencer marketing as like a brand play now because there'll be some that we can drive like ROI from, but it's just so unpredictable these days. But yeah, it's an ever-changing landscape, but it's going to be important. One last question I have for you is I'm, as someone who has a lot on my plate, sometimes too much, like I like to bite off more than I can chew, slightly fuck it up for a little bit of time until I can catch up in terms of my growth to execute on all these things at a high level. For someone that's been able to achieve a high level of success, I want to know your personal view as how you set up your day for success, how you plan for your week, and then how you look at it for a whole year of goal setting to ensure that you are moving closer to your big goals that you're setting.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger annual kind of goals are sort of like action and then I guess result for me. Like, what did I want to achieve from an execution point of view, and then what was the result of that? From, I think revenue is a massive thing when you're in business. It's just naturally something that you look at. I, in more recent times, have looked to things like the size of, you know, the business, like in Equalution, like active clientele and churn rate and all that kind of stuff were metrics that, you know, always measured success. So when I look at like business metrics, that I think doing them on an annual basis is like, you know, you'd expect quite a big jump for 12 months worth of work. But going right back to skinning back to day, sometimes literally the one foot in front of the other kind of tasks are the things that, you know, compound and lead you to a successful year. So I'm not afraid to have granular goals on a day-to-day basis that even just from like waking up every day at, you know, 4:30, 5 o'clock, because it buys you an extra, you know, maybe 2 hours a day, you know, 6 days a week or something, 12 hours in a week. Like all those things I think are really important. Exercising daily, eating well, you know, plowing through a to-do list and just making sure you get to the end of it by, you know, the time the night's over.
And one of the biggest things for me is like once you get to a certain point, your to-do list never ends.
Yeah.
It's like prioritization.
Yeah, for sure.
Is a massive underappreciated skill. And it's something I had to learn. There's been certain periods, not long periods, but some periods of business where, you know, when you're just really, really, really busy, but you're not really achieving that much. It's like, well, look at your day. What are you working on? And then like, okay, I've got 50 things I need to do. What are the 5 biggest things I can work on that are going to give me the best bang for the buck in terms of time, and focus on them? Because I've never got to the end of my to-do list in the last like 3 years. Like in terms of like really all the things I could be doing for the business. There's a million things I can do for the business.
Of course.
You know
and I think a lot of people, especially that are new to, you know, just being an operator in general, just have such high expectations of a day that's the small measurable. The big measurable is like what the week looked like, what the month looked like, and then, you know, compounded to the year. So I think your day doesn't have to be rocket science, you know. You know, Jenna and I are building a course out at the moment for kickstarting a startup. And, you know, we had a goal this week to crank out 3 weeks of the course. It's not 12 or it's not finishing the course in a week. Like, that's ridiculous. We're running a business. So, you know, it's like 3 or 4 this week and then 4 the next, and then in 3 weeks time we'll be finished, you know? So I think like it's okay to be realistic and starting small, like even, you know, the highest operators will do the same thing.
Oh, I'm the same. Whenever I'm working on new projects with people, I've been at the start and you can say, let's have it all finished by X date.
Yeah.
But with someone who's done a lot of projects for my business, I know realistically what's achievable and what isn't. And what's that classic saying? People overestimate what they can achieve in a day, but underestimate what they can achieve in a year.
Exactly. It's so true. It's so true. It's that classic like 1% type philosophy.
Yeah, each day 1% better.
Yeah.
And Jade, far out, we could talk, I'm sure, for another hour. Before we finish up, like again, thank you so much for coming in. I know you're extremely busy. You've got a lot on your plate. Where's
So
the
do
best?
you.
I know, but I love it. I can't stop. So for anyone who's interested in looking more into Big Uppetite or any of the content you're putting out, where's the best place people can find you or the
probably
business?
my Instagram, Jade Spooner, and then the Big Uppetite Instagram, which is big.uppetite. So it's like appetite, but with a U for up. And then our website, www.biguppetite.com.
I've noticed you've done something very wise that I don't know if you did it on purpose or by accident the first time, but you picked very unique words for your business name.
Yeah.
Happy Skin Co. Not very unique. So
That's
one
but
thing.
I think, well, I mean, when I think Happy Skin Co., it makes me smile. And you also get put in like the, you know, like the skin space, which beauty and all that. It's like, it's fun, you know, and it's, you make a woman happy with that, you know? So, but unique words, I think I'm very big on branding and I like a story.
And anything for IP and trademarking and stuff. Little tip, pick a unique word, be a lot easier for you.
Exactly.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks, Jade. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Cheers. All right, there we go. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, could you please do me a quick favor and hit the follow or subscribe button? I honestly appreciate it more than you know. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.